Hey everybody, random guy on the internet here. Today I want to talk about my current dilemma of whether I should finance a 2025 to 2026 ZX6R or pay for it in full with cash. Now, I don't plan on buying a motorcycle in the near future, nor in this year, but I do plan on getting it eventually. Uh, this is because I want to build a lineup of motorcycles, specifically the Ninja 500, a ZX6R, and eventually an H2. And I already have the Ninja 500, and the next goal is the ZX6R. That said, I'm not trying to rush this purchase since I still have other priorities that is needed, which will require money, such as reaching a certain net worth within the next 4 years. So, yeah, back to my main problem, whether I should finance the motorcycle or pay for it outright. I've done some research, and by research, I mean talking to people and watching YouTube videos from random creators who probably know more what they are doing. And from that, I've put together a list of pros and cons for both options between finance and paying full in cash. So for paying full in cash, the pros for it would be first is I would own the bike outright. I wouldn't be tied down to a bank that might require a premium or a high insurance coverage, and I'd have the peace of mind of knowing the bike is completely mine. And second, I wouldn't be paying interest. So, for example, if I finance a $16,000 motorcycle at a 5% interest rate over 48 months, I'd end up paying about approximately $17,600, somewhere around that, meaning like 1,600 interest would go purely out of my pocket. So, to reiterate, it's $1,600 on just interest. And by paying in cash, I wouldn't have that problem. So I would only just be paying 16 grand for the motorcycle. Now, this is assuming the out the door price is 16 grand for the motorcycle and the finance is 5%. So next we have pros of financing. The biggest advantage of financing is being able to invest my extra capital instead of putting it all into the bike upfront. So let's say I have a $4,000 a month income and somehow I manage to get a really good deal of 5% APR for 48 months with zero down. On a $16,000 motorcycle, my monthly payment would about average around $470, leaving me roughly about 4,000, you know, leaving me roughly about $3,593 per month to invest. Now, doing some rough calculations, if I started from a $0 net worth and invested the amount consistently, I'd end up with around $200,101 in net worth after about 4 years. So at the end of the 48-month term. Compare that to paying in full. If I waited about 4 months to save up and buy the bike outright and only started investing afterwards, I'd end up with roughly $190,000 after like 4 years. And that's about a somewhere around $10,000 difference. And that's kind of big when it comes to net profit. Showing how finance could potentially lead to a higher net worth due to it, giving me an earlier advantage because it gives me an earlier investing. Other advantages of financing include lower upfront cost, which would allow me to afford premium insurance more easily and maintain a larger emergency fund. And on top of that, consistently making payments could help build my credit score, which for a young person like me is very useful. Now, we've gone to the pros. Let's move on to the cons. So the cons for paying full in cash is that I'd have to wait about 4 months to save up enough to buy a bike, and I'd miss out on investing the money early, which kind of hurts compounding. Additionally, I wouldn't benefit from building credit through any sort of financing because I'd be paying full in cash and I wouldn't be credited. Now, for the cons of financing, this strategy only works if I can secure a really good low APR deal with only about a year of credit history. That's kind of unlikely. So for me, a young adult who has only had a credit card for about a year and a month, it's going to be pretty difficult for me to find a good low APR deal. And that is kind of, the deciding factor of getting finance, since if I don't have a deal that is lower than 10% of the annual market return, then that's kind of it's not gonna do well for me. Is what I'm trying to say. It kind of takes the whole financing early out of the picture, because I'd be paying more in APR rather than return in investments. So additionally, these calculation also assumes that there's a 10% annual market return every year, which, looking at the stocks right now, it's not guaranteed. No one can guarantee the future of the stock market. It might crash or it might go up. Who knows? We don't know that. I'm just betting that it's gonna go up for the next 4 years. And lastly, financing requires full coverage insurance for the duration of the loans. And personally, I don't see this as a big issue, but I just want to point it out because I believe in having a strong insurance, regardless whether you are financing or you are buying the motorcycle full. So, in conclusion, for me, the cash option is the safer and simpler route, as it requires just patience, just waiting a couple of months. And any concerns about emergency funds or insurance, I could easily just wait a little longer. So, for example, if I need to wait 5 months to save up for a motorcycle, I can just wait another, 1 or 2 months to get a safety net for my insurance and emergency fund. However, paying in cash means missing out on several months of compounding, which could result in a lower net worth after 4 years. Financing, on the other hand, could slightly increase my net worth, but only if I get a really good APR, which again is unlikely given my short credit history. I could always ask my grandma to go sign it, but I really don't want to put this as a burden on her, since it's a motorcycle, and I'm going like, hey grandma, could you go sign a really dangerous bike for me? I don't think I'll do that to my grandma. So both options have a trade-off. Cash is safer but cost potential growth, while financing offers more growth but comes with more risk and is dependent on a really good deal. So instead of stressing over choosing one, I decided, what if I combine both? So here is a hybrid approach. Using a $4,000 monthly income, for example, I split it into two buckets. One bucket is $2,000 that goes into a savings account, a high yield savings account that will save up to buy the motorcycle, while $2,000 goes straight into the S&P 500. With this setup, it would take about 6 months to save enough to buy the motorcycle in cash. And after 4 years, 48 months, let's compare option 1, which is cash, option 2, which is finance, and option 3, which is save and invest hybrid. Now, with rough calculations, option 1 gives me a net profit of $190,000 in investment. Option 2, which is finance, gives me a $200,000 net worth in investments. So what do you think option 3 would be? Surprisingly, it is higher than the finance. And the approximate number is $202,000 in investments. So it's $2,000 difference between option 2 and option 3, with option 3 being slightly higher in net worth. So that's a $2,000 advantage over financing, with the only downside being that I'd have to wait an extra 2 months to buy the bike. And honestly, that works in my favor. My short credit history stops being a problem since I wouldn't need to finance it. Now, I'll admit these calculations are rough, and a lot of the assumptions are involved credit score changes, market returns, and recessions, while additionally considering other factors could play an impact and final outcome. As of now, I still haven't fully decided whether I'll finance, pay cash, or go with hybrid approach. But that said, two things would immediately trigger me to buy this bike. Number one is if I find a really good deal, either a very low APR or an out the door price between 11K and 14K, ideally around 13K, or somewhere around 1 to 5% APR. Although that might mean giving up ABS, which honestly I'm not too keen of. Number two, if I reach one of my major financial goals within my 4-year plan, once I hit a certain savings or investment milestone, then I'd feel comfortable rewarding myself with a ZX6R. So you could see how long I'd probably have to wait until I buy a ZX6R. Maybe about 2-3 years from now, I would be comfortable enough to buy a ZX6R, but right now I'm not in a financial position to buy a ZX6R. I could, but again, it wouldn't be financially wise of me. I mean, I already have a Kawasaki 500 and I'm kind of fun with that, but I'm just seeing what my options are in the future. So yeah, if I get to a certain amount of investments before the 4 years, if I find a really good deal, then yeah, you might see me with a ZX6R this year. Who knows? So yeah, that's how I'm approaching buying a motorcycle at this stage of my life, and that's it for me. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.